All right, today we're jumping into one of Shakespeare's most intense and honestly most controversial plays, The Merchant of Venice. On the surface, it's a story about love and money, but if you dig just a little deeper, it forces you to grapple with some really tough questions about prejudice, justice, and revenge. Questions that are just as real today as they were 400 years ago. So, let's get into it. So, I want you to just picture this. You're desperate for a loan, but the fine print, the penalty for not paying it back on time, it isn't extra interest. It's not losing your house. No. The penalty is that someone gets to cut a pound of flesh from your body. That insane, horrifying scenario is the beating heart of this entire story. And at the center of it all are these two figures. You've got Antonio, a wealthy, well-liked Christian merchant in Venice, and then you have Shylock, a Jewish moneylender. He's an outsider, spat on, and humiliated by the very same people, like Antonio, who still come to him when they need money. This isn't just business, it's personal. And their bitter conflict is the spark that sets this whole thing on fire. So you've got to be wondering, how in the world does a loan turn into a life or death situation? Well, it all goes back to the beginning, to this absolutely deadly deal. It all kicks off for a pretty familiar reason: love. There's this young nobleman, Bassanio, and he's completely head over heels for Portia, who is not only brilliant, but also incredibly rich. The only problem? He's flat broke. He needs money just to show up and look like a decent suitor. And for that, he goes to his best friend, Antonio. So Antonio wants to help, but all his money is literally at sea, tied up in his merchant ships. So they go to the one person they know has the cash, Shylock. Now, Shylock has been holding on to a serious grudge against Antonio, so he makes this strange offer. He'll loan them 3,000 ducats, which is a ton of money, for 3 months, and instead of interest, he suggests this little merry sport. If the loan isn't paid back on time, Shylock gets to cut 1 pound of flesh from Antonio's body. You're probably thinking, who would agree to that? Well, this quote right here tells you everything you need to know about Antonio. He tells his friend, "My money, my body, everything I have, it's all yours." He is so loyal that he is willing to risk it all, his wealth, his body, his life, for his friend's happiness. And he's sure his ships will come in, so he signs the deal. Okay, so while Antonio's fate is hanging by a thread back in Venice, a totally different kind of drama is playing out for his friend Bassanio. It involves, believe it or not, a strange lottery for love. But you know it's coming. Disaster is about to make these two worlds collide. See, here's the deal with Portia. She can't actually pick who she marries. It's in her father's will. Any guy who wants to marry her has to choose between 3 caskets: 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 lead. Pick the right one, you get the girl. The Prince of Morocco goes for the gold, and he's out. The Prince of Aragon picks silver, wrong again. But then comes Bassanio, and he chooses the plain, humble lead casket, and he wins. And this moment, right here, gets at one of the play's biggest themes. The message inside that gold casket basically says, don't judge a book by its cover. Bassanio wins because he gets it. He understands that real worth isn't about what's flashy and on the outside, it's about what's on the inside. But right in the middle of their celebration, everything falls apart. A letter arrives. All of Antonio's ships have been lost at sea. He's bankrupt. He can't pay the loan. And to make matters 1,000,000 times worse, Shylock has just suffered his own tragedy. His daughter ran off with a Christian, and she took a lot of his money with her. That double betrayal pushes him over the edge. Now, he doesn't want the money, he wants revenge. And this brings us to the scene everyone knows, the most famous part of the play, the trial. The 3 months are up, the deal is broken, and Shylock has come to court to legally claim his pound of flesh. The scene is just grim. I mean, even the Duke of Venice, the guy in charge, says his hands are tied. The law is on Shylock's side. Bassanio, who's now rich because of Portia, offers Shylock double the money, 3 times the money, 10 times the money. But Shylock won't take it. He doesn't want cash. And that's his whole argument right there. "'Tis mine and I will have it." He sees this pound of flesh as his legal right. It's the one piece of justice he feels he can get from a world that's always been unjust to him. He will not back down, and Antonio is literally preparing to die. But then, a brilliant young lawyer from out of town named Balthazar shows up to argue for Antonio. What nobody in that courtroom knows is that this lawyer is actually Portia, Bassanio's new wife, in a very convincing disguise, and she's there to save the day. So the stage is now set for this epic showdown. But it's not really about the loan anymore. It's become a battle between two huge ideas: strict, by-the-book justice versus forgiving, compassionate mercy. Before getting into the legal arguments, Portia, as Balthazar, gives this absolutely legendary speech. She appeals to Shylock's humanity. She says mercy isn't something you can force. It's like rain. It's a blessing to the person who gives it and the person who receives it. She's basically saying it's a higher calling than justice. But Shylock is not having it. He's been shown no mercy by these people his whole life. Why should he show them any now? He demands the law. He wants his bond, period. The court has no choice but to agree. The knife is sharpened. This is it. Antonio's life is hanging by a single thread. And right at that moment, just as Shylock is moving in to make the cut, Portia springs the trap. She says, wait, she's found a loophole. An absolutely brilliant one. The contract gives him 1 pound of flesh, that's true, but it says nothing about blood. So sure, he can take the flesh, but if he spills even 1 single drop of Christian blood, all of his own property and his very life will be confiscated by the state of Venice. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Look at Shylock's side. For him, justice is the literal exact wording of the law, and his motivation is revenge. The end result is cruelty. Now look at Portia's view. Justice has to be balanced with compassion. It's this divine thing that actually helps everyone involved. By using Shylock's own rigid logic against him, Portia not only saves Antonio, she completely destroys Shylock's case. Shylock is completely cornered. He's lost. But the trial isn't quite over, because now the court has to decide what to do with him. We're at the final verdict. Yeah, the tables turn, and they turn hard. Because he plotted against a citizen of Venice, Shylock now faces a brutal punishment. The Duke shows mercy by not executing him, but he has to give up half of his wealth. And then comes the final blow, maybe the cruelest of all. He is forced to give up his Jewish faith and convert to Christianity. And after that, everything else just kind of neatly falls into place. Portia and her maid Nerissa reveal who they really were, but not before having a little fun with their husbands over some wedding rings they tricked them into giving away. And in a final twist of fate, we learn that Antonio's ships weren't lost after all. They've come home safe and sound. So, yeah, all the Christian characters get their happy ending, but the play leaves us with this really complicated, uncomfortable feeling. Did they actually practice the mercy that Portia spoke about so beautifully? Or by taking Shylock's money, his identity, and his religion, did they just deliver their own kind of cold legal revenge? That question right there is why The Merchant of Venice is still argued about, still performed, and is still so incredibly powerful today. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.